Hello and welcome to the next video tutorial. In this video we'll be going over loading the forest inventory and analysis data into ForMaple quickly and easily. Let's go ahead and get started. So assuming you have ForMaple downloaded, I have mine on my desktop. I can come here, I can launch ForMaple, and it will load the Shiny app. And here it is here. And we can start loading in FIA data. You go ahead and make this full screen. Okay, so in the Import tab, it defaults to your own plot data. If you want to load FIA data, you can come here and you click on the FIA data tab, and there's a bunch of different things you can do. So by default, if you never downloaded any FIA data before, it'll prompt you to download it from the FIA data mart. So a couple of things to discuss here. So the first thing is, where do you want to save your data? I'm going to assume most people don't want it to save to the temporary directory. So by default, just to make sure the app works, if you don't specify a location, it'll save it to temporary directory where R is running. And if you go ahead and close R, the data will be wiped. So I would highly recommend that if you plan on reusing your database from FIA, you come here and you browse to a location where you want it to save. So for my case, I'm going to put this on my desktop. So C users, Aiden Morales, and then we'll do desktop. Where's my desktop? There we go. And we'll do ForMaple demo. So I'm going to use this as where I'm going to put my data. I'm going to select this, and by default, it'll have a name called DuckDB FIA sub. We can call this whatever we want. So I can call this my FIA database. That's cool. So this is what the file will be called in the directory you specified. So it's going to save it now to my desktop with my name that I've called my FIA database. Okay, so now when we go ahead, before we select the states and tables, there's an option to keep downloaded source files. So how this works is that this will pull the data from the FIA data mart. It will take the files and it will convert them into a DuckDB, which is a very efficient, fast database for querying data and compressing its size. It's really great. I highly recommend it, especially if you're used to SQL and stuff like that. But that's besides the point here. Basically, it takes the files from FIA, it converts them into a format that ForMaple uses, which is a DuckDB. And so by default, it's not going to keep the original FIA files. So the CSVs, the database files, it's going to just discard those and save just the DuckDB. If you want to keep those, you can check this checkbox. It will make sure that all of those data are saved if for some reason you want to manually access the CSV files from the data mart. Okay. So what this is going to do is this will now tell me, okay, I have my directory I want to save it to, my database. I don't want to save the original files. I just want the final DuckDB. Now you can go here and you can choose your states. So let's say you know the states by the two-letter state codes, US states, territories, or the number code. You can choose the ones you want. For the interest of time, I'm going to choose a state like, let's say, let's pick one. Let's do New Hampshire. I like New Hampshire. New Hampshire is fun. So I can pick New Hampshire. It's going to pull out New Hampshire from the database, from the data mart, download it to my local computer, convert it to a DuckDB. Now the tables. So in order to use ForMaple, we need a couple of tables. We need the tree table, the plot table, the condition table, and if you're going to use area estimates, you need things like the population and the stratums and the eval, all that fun stuff. So that's taken care of for you. If you just want to use ForMaple, just leave everything as is. It will download all the tables you need. However, if you want to download all of the state's tables, let's say for use down the line, or if you just want to have them and you plan on doing your own analysis, you can also download all the tables. This will download every table associated with the state. This example, I'm not going to do that. because I don't need to. But if you want to, you have that option. Okay, so we can go ahead and click download data here. And so it's going to say downloading data, check the R terminal for live progress. And so what this means is that because Shiny can't capture live download progress, if you open up your terminal window here, which is where ForMaple is running, it'll show you the progress of the download. And so unfortunately, I can't make this actually show up in Shiny, but you can see it here in your window if you're interested. It's basically, as long as this hasn't progressed, it's still downloading. And so, again, what this does is it's going to take the data from the FIA data mart. So in this case, it's downloaded New Hampshire plot. It's downloading the New Hampshire tree CSV. And this can take a while just because the FIA data mart's data download speeds tend to be quite slow. I'm not sure why. So make sure that you download what you need and you save it so you don't have to do this again, because this can be kind of annoying to download this multiple times. Optionally, what you can do, which I tend to do, is you can download the entire data from FIA and just store it as one database, which we can get into later. It makes it easier to not have to do this every time you use ForMaple. But for this case, we'll just download New Hampshire and save it. And so it's going to take all the tables, tree, condition, population, eval. It has finished downloading them all. And now it's going to convert them into a DuckDB. And when it's done, we should see, boom, look at that. FIA data downloaded. Cool. And just to verify, we can come here onto my desktop where I save my data, and we can see that it has the DuckDB file as well as the CSV file. So these will be cleared once you close ForMaple, but it will save this DuckDB file. So you can see it's 43.7 megabytes, which is a huge reduction compared to the raw 138 megabytes of just raw FIA data, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now that your data has been downloaded, you can then choose the columns you want from it. From the tree table, it's by default going to take everything we need for ForMaple. Same thing with the plot and condition table. But if you want to, you can browse these columns and pick out stuff that you want. I'm not going to, but you can. Same thing for plot. You can pull out different columns. And the same thing for condition. We've got some couple that people might use, like owner code and forest type. You can pull other stuff out. Let's say field age. It'll tell you how old the stand is, for example. So once you've gotten all the tables and columns you want, you can click Format Data, and it will format the data for you. And just to show you that this worked, if we go to the map, we can see here, boom, all the data from New Hampshire has been loaded into ForMaple without you having to do any crazy FIA data mart stuff. Okay, so a couple of things here in the import. So now that you've downloaded your data, that's awesome. It's ready to go. If you want to, let's say, use that data again, we have an Import FIA Data tab, which lets you basically do the same thing as the download, but instead of downloading it, you're going to find it on your disk and load it into ForMaple. So I can click on my Browse, and I'm going to go to my desktop where I save the data we just downloaded. It's going to be C, Users, A Morales, Desktop, ForMaple Demo, my DuckDB. And it's going to load the database. It'll tell you the states you have. So I have just New Hampshire. And again, it'll tell you the columns. We can pick those out, pick out the plots, the condition columns, etc. And do the same one again, field age. I'm going to go ahead and format. And it's going to work just like it did before. You can go back to our map. We can see all of our data is here in ForMaple, which is really awesome. So you can download data, you can save it, and then you can load it back in at any time at your own time and discretion. So that's how we import data into ForMaple from FIA. One other important thing is the eValidation ID. Let's say, so by default, it's going to pull out every single plot that's ever been measured in the state. So if we come into our map, we can see, okay, this is every plot that's ever been measured in New Hampshire, which is cool. But let's say we want to pull out a specific validation ID. So I would highly recommend that if you're just getting started with FIA data, you click on this validation ID and you just click the default use latest per state and territory. What this is going to do is going to pull out the current tree and volume estimate plots. It's going to pull up those plot IDs and let you use those. This will be the latest FIA data for each cycle in the state. So in this case, it's 2019, 2025 for New Hampshire. And it tells you the number of plots, so 1,053 plots. If we come back to our map, if we go ahead and update this here, you can see these are the latest inventory plots without any duplicates, any nonsense for your FIA data. So if you're just starting, I would highly recommend in the import tab, after you import, you choose the latest validation ID per state. If you know what you're doing and you want a different validation ID, you can come here and you can select all the different evaluation types, and you can pull out the different years that you want to use. So if you're interested in the 1997 data, you could do that. But if you're just a casual user like myself who doesn't want to deal with old systems, just pull out the latest, and it should get you where you want to be. Okay, so that is how we can import FIA data from Data Mart, all in Formable. You can download it, you can save it, you can load it back in, and you can pull out the validation IDs that you want. So that is it for the importing data section. The next one, it'll be a brief tutorial going over the geometry that you can import into Formable. So this is the end of this recording, and we'll pick up again in the next geometry section.